Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team, and I'm Calvin here with Ramon.
Hey guys.
So, how are you doing on this week?
It's been pretty good actually. Today was awesome. I went to Krispy Kreme.
Nice.
And got it was a couple friends of us, and we got 4 dozen donuts. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's pretty good.
That seems like more than enough.
Yeah, right. Well, it was there were some for family. Like, it wasn't just like yes, 4 dozen donuts just for us. But
I mean,
anyway,
I can respect that. I can't say I wouldn't do that. So.
How's things with you?
Pretty good, busy week, but I just saw a really cute video of a duck on Twitter, so, I think it all balances out.
That's good.
It was really cute.
Great.
So, yeah, with that, I would say I'm having a pretty great week.
Nice.
I don't think there's anything else for us to really catch up on for the channel wise, other than us being at like 102 subscribers now. I don't know, but we can roll right into the topics today for our podcast discussion.
Yeah,
so
let's get into it.
Yeah, we like to talk about doing GM stuff behind the screen, and just our insights on how that's been going after we've been running games for several years now. So we might have brushed on this topic a bit before, but I wanted to circle back to encounter building. Because I know that's a favorite topic of yours, and I think I do have some thoughts on it that I might want to expand on, especially regarding like some more recent combats I may have run.
Okay.
So, what I was mostly thinking about in regards to this, but you can say whatever you want on it, but I was mostly thinking about like villainous NPCs and just how you created an NPC who isn't just a challenge to the player, but also feels more personal in a way, or just creating a person that the players distinctly want to beat up. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, you can just
like, yeah, it would be like, instead of just fighting I don't know, like a bunch of wolves in the forest or something, or a bunch of I don't know, like animals inside of a cave or something like that. You're talking about like a villain who's like a villain in the sense of like a narrative sense of like a villain, like an antagonist, right?
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be an overarching villain. Just like even just someone who has a personality that's really annoying. Because like in the more recent Pathfinder game that I was running, I was using a random encounter table for that. And it was a pretty decent table that I had set up, but like we briefly touched on this last week, but I guess I can expand on it more. In the game, at one point there was a time where like the way the table works is they do a perception check, and then they roll a d12, and depending on their perception check, it skews how likely they are to get an encounter versus just a random event.
Oh, okay.
So basically, like, lower numbers were events, higher numbers were encounters. And so I had a player roll, they got a decent perception check. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was decent. So they were more likely to get an event. So I was like, okay, I'll probably pick something from here. And then I had them roll a d12, and they got a 12 on that roll. And the thing is, we were just coming off of another combat encounter. I think that was just after the night ambush that had happened.
Right.
And then this was just coming off the major wolf fight right at the beginning, where Keely died. F's in chat for Keely. And I don't know, it just felt like it would disrupt the pacing to throw in another combat there, even though that's what I had made this system for. And I don't know, maybe I need to change some things up with it somehow. But it did feel like it would just, like it would be interrupting the pace of the flow of the game to throw in another just like random combat. My thought process at the time was that if I just throw in another random fight, it's going to like disrupt the flow of the game. So at the time I just chose to like explain how the weather was changing as they were moving on, how the environment was sort of changing around them, and how that might like affect their travel conditions.
Right, which I think was pretty cool, because I mean, it didn't really, I don't think it really mattered game mechanically, but it kind of felt like how it was cool to see like how our characters would react to it, right? So, you know,
yeah,
even though we weren't actually being rained on and it didn't actually matter about the trip, but it kind of felt like, oh no, my character, it kind of sucked. Right?
Yeah, it did. If you guys were still like navigating on foot, it would have been more difficult as the weather started changing. But even just that alone, it still sort of like changed the tone in a way that I don't think throwing in another fight would have.
Right.
So yeah, I guess like I just was thinking about encounter building in terms of making the encounter something that players want to go through and something that doesn't feel like I just put this here to, like a chore. Yeah, I just put this here to put this here because it could still be fun. Like combat still could be fun. I just want it to feel like it has a purpose. Like the wolves, they had a purpose. The pug wampies that we fought, they had a purpose. I don't know. I just in the midst of doing this random encounter thing, I was like, would this have a purpose other than just existing for the sake of existing? And I don't know. I couldn't justify it in that moment. So I was like, well, I'll break this thing that I made and come back to it later.
Well, I think that a random table is good for inspiration, but I don't think anyone should be beholden to a couple columns and a couple rows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so encounters. I guess you kind of have to think about what are the motives, right, of your antagonists, like your enemy NPCs, right? So let's say like for when like the initial introduction to my new character Baruth, the Pugwampis were just capturing me. There's only like 2 of them, right? So I mean, and it wasn't really a combat, it was mostly just like an introductory scenario, right?
Yeah.
But like, you know, what were their motivation? Their motivation was to capture me because apparently we're not friends. Right?
No, I mean, they do, like, they cause bad luck for people, they steal people's stuff. They might have had, I don't know, if you guys had gotten a really, really good perception check, you might have found a little store of theirs, but who knows now that you're just traveling on this caravan. I will say, though, the Pugwampy thing, that was inspired by the random encounter table.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I had the list of I had the list of creatures, and then I rolled on the random encounter table, and I had to introduce you as well. So I was like, whatever happens on this table, I'll just figure out a way to put this new character in it. Right. But like, instead of locking me into a combat, it gave me a combat with a purpose, because it could have been other types of creatures that you could have been trapped with.
Yeah, exactly right. And because it was so low stakes, you know, you don't really need to put too much effort into it. But I mean, you still have to think, I mean, like, these Pugwampis are like, oh cool, we caught this big guy in this you know, trap, so we're good with him. It's just, you know, we're outnumbered and we're cool. Mm-hmm. But as soon as like more people showed up, then you have to like start thinking like, well, okay, are these Pugwampis just gonna run? I mean, I would if I was just like a small dog thing and there was just all these big people with all the sharp axes and stuff just start showing up, you know. So I mean, I think that maybe I would have put up a fight, maybe like 1 round of attacking, and if one of them went down or whatever, I would just cheese it, which I think that happened, or maybe they both
sort
died
of. When you were climbing up, like one of them had fallen into our dwarf fighter had shoved one into the same hole that you fell into, and then you grabbed it as you were climbing up. And because it got so hurt in the hole, it like ran off, and the other one ran off with it. And then they tried to attack you while you were sleeping, which didn't work out very well for them.
Yeah, they kind of came back with revenge. But so I would have probably had the Pugwampis come back with like a gang of them, like, you know, like, oh, I told all his friends, and now they're all gonna mess with us, right?
Yeah, they got a little overconfident, but I mean, now there might be a Pugwampy tribe in the forest that's kind of mad at you guys. As well as a gang of bandits that's kind of mad at you guys.
I think it'd be pretty cool if like if on the way like bad stuff kept happening to us and, you know, we wouldn't know why, right? It's just like, oh, Calvin's just being Calvin and making our lives difficult, right? And then it's gonna be like, oh no, you just, you know, a perception check later, you find like a little dog thing snickering in the corner, like, oh no, this is Pugwampis we pissed off, right? But they're just there to kind of make our lives like hell. They're not there to kill us, right? Because, you know, I don't know how these things are, but they're probably trying to make our lives hell and then steal from us, right? So that's like their motivation.
Yeah, that's their basic. I mean, normally they just deal with random travelers, not adventurers. So
exactly, right. And it's like, so I would think that, you know, their prime motive is like hit and run, right? Yeah. So, and the worst thing you can do for a PC, or like the worst thing you could do to a PC in an encounter is have the enemies run away. like especially really? If like, yeah, like honestly, like people are like, they're like, ah, damn it, he got away, coward, you know what I mean? Like it's always just like, oh, I guess we won. But then it's like, if you keep harrowing them and keep coming back, they're gonna be like, oh, those goddamn pig whoppies again, right? Like it's like frustrating to not be able to stop a thing from happening, because once you kill a monster, it's dead, it's gone, right? Yeah. You're like, ah, I did it, right? But it's like, you know, until we go and deal with the pugwampies and in their pugwampy house or home or whatever, or nest, then they're always going to keep messing with us. And I'll always, and if I were using them, I would always have them in my back pocket for, you know, explaining some ridiculous circumstance that I'm in. At least while we're in the forest. Like, oh no, the table I'm using, the leg broke and spilled coffee all over my nice clean shirt. And it's, you hear like snickering in the corner.
Well, I mean, I do now have a few back pocket things.
Yeah.
Like even the wolves we fought was a back pocket thing.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
I've got a few more now, so.
Yeah, so you know, I mean, like if we're building out a pugwampy encounter, like also like the type of creature, right? So pugwampies are small. They have an inbuilt ability to cause bad luck, right? They look a little skittish, a little dumb from like the picture, but it's like they're still kind of crafty. So like they look like, since they're just here to steal your stuff, they'll probably just like ambush you, right? So and if they live in the forest, and they're not gonna like go out, like they'll set up traps and situations where their bad luck thing will, you know, be they can take advantage of that, right? Like I would have a pugwampy encounter where there's a bunch of pit traps. Like you trapped me in the pit before, right? I would just be like, yeah, I'm gonna run with that. So every time the pugwampies are like, so the first encounter would be like maybe the caravan is like all of a sudden like a caravan's wheel broke, right? Because, you know, bad luck out of nowhere, right? We're trying to fix it. Pugwampies is trying to steal our stuff, and then they start attacking us, right? We fight them, maybe we kill a couple, maybe we wound a couple, but as soon as like a couple of them get hit, we can say like, I would just switch to being like, all right, all of the pugwampies try and run away, and you see them stealing some stuff, right? What do you want to do, right? It's like the cart's broken, obviously. Are you going to pursue them? More than likely, PCs are going to be like, yeah, we're going to go get them, right? Because no one. Also, stealing something from a PC is like the worst too. Like if you could get a villain character to take something from one of your players, like they'll hunt them down to the ends of the earth. Like, so, but anyway, so if you steal something from somebody, like one of the pugwampies, and runs off with this, they're going to chase them down, and I would say the pugwampies would obviously have ways to get around. So I would have the next encounter be them in a bunch of bushes or brambles, so it's hard to move around, and a bunch of pit traps. Yeah. So it's like now all of their rolls are kind of shitty because, you know, they're bad luck. I would set up like, you know, pit traps and all that stuff, because like the actual threat of the pugwampies is like yourself falling into their traps. Like they don't really do that much.
No, right? They're level 0.
Exactly, right? Like they don't really do anything, but it's like, you know, these things had to be successful somehow, right? Or
yeah, by creating like this bad luck aura, which I think is beneficial to them. But yeah, like I like what you're describing, because it takes into account what you've seen before, as in that pit trap and their bad luck abilities, and then it's how do you expand on it to make this creature more of a threat, along with what does this creature do that's unique? Well, it sneaks around the forest, it might steal something from somebody. So do that, inconvenience the PCs in a way that they can't just smash with their weapons.
Yeah, exactly.
Which seems to be the main thing for frustrations, I guess. If a creature runs away or a creature just steals something, you can't solve that immediately with a swing of a sword.
Yeah. Especially if someone like they like hit and run. Like if like all PCs really want is a fair fight where they all stand in front of each other and they all whack each other until someone falls down, right? That's like the prime time what PCs want because it's the easiest thing to do, right? But
it's
adding
optimal,
that exactly
right? For me,
yeah,
definitely.
Yes. So, and
just let me
but then if you try to put positioning and cover and maneuvering, like all these extra layers, and then like traps, and then like, coordination, right? It's like all these layers now take a basically throwing dice at each other to now we're like playing a game where it's like there's like extra things you have to think about, like to win the fight, right?
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's fun for the DM. It's fun for me because then it's like it's weird. So we're all players at the table. Like, as much as like I'm the DM and they're the player characters, we're actually all players at the table because we're all playing this game. Except my job is to lose graciously, and it's their job to win, right? So adding that level of difficulty on my end makes me feel good because, the at least I get to have some fun and win a little bit, but then ultimately lose at the end, right? Like,
yeah, that is the main thing. But yeah, like that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about that last game you had run with that one guy, with that Falzor guy, who was just again acting differently than very normal combat NPC would. Yeah.
You have to do that, I think, for like single like boss characters, like boss fights, where it's just like one creature versus the party kind of deal. It's like it's like you have to like put more layers in it versus like, because it's gonna just be like the boss thing goes, we're all subject to the same amount of actions in the action economy. So the boss thing goes on its turn, but then 4 other people get to have 4 turns. So that's like 12 actions versus my 3. And I mean, I think they do a good job in some of the higher level creatures, especially in the like dragons and all those big creatures that you're probably just going to fight solo. A good thing is like I like the idea of a chimera, because a chimera has like 3 heads and it gives like 3 attacks of opportunity pretty much, right?
Yeah. So,
and it's able to kind of act on someone else's turn, right? Mm-hmm. That's what you kind of want to think. You want to put layers in between the goal, which is killing the monster, other than just like its hit points and AC and stuff like that. It's like you got to put the terrain in there. Like, if you're a solo monster and you've been living here and you're being successful, right, by yourself, like how are you doing it?
Yeah, you know your terrain.
You know your terrain, right? If you're a boss monster, you know your terrain, unless you're in a situation where like, obviously that's not the case, right? Yeah. But
what do you think about? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I wanted to follow up on just like fighting solo creatures. Yeah. Whenever that topic comes up, I immediately think of, I know you're probably going to be aware of this thing that Matt Koval talked about, because I know how much you love Koval.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Which was boss actions.
Yes.
Essentially extra actions that a boss creature can take during combat.
Right. And I did use them. I didn't call them boss actions or said they were actions, but like when you guys fought Fazel. I
don't know.
Falzor.
You know why I remember him is because I hated him so much. He was such a jerk, and then he kept doing stuff and then running away, and I just wanted to stab him, but I was trapped in his stupid gelatinous cube.
Right. So yeah. I mean, his boss action essentially was the explosive snares, like the alchemic explosive snares.
Yeah.
So okay, so if I broke down that fight in the same kind of mind frame of like encounter building that we just discussed, right?
Sure.
So Falzor, right?
That's his name. I mean, he's dead now,
right.
But
he's dead now. So Falzor, you guys are chasing him into his territory. So one, first off the bat, Falzar knows the terrain, right? It's his place. He's in control. It's his domain, right?
Yes.
So next thing is that Falzar is not a frontline fighter.
No.
So he's going to use range and stealth because, you know, there's a bunch of crates and a bunch of boxes in this warehouse. It's a dark warehouse. You can't see too well. And there's lots of places for him to hide. And he's also booby-trapped the place. So, you know, and I gave you guys... I didn't really draw out a map for this, but I basically said, like, you can move normally perfectly fine. And I just kind of said, like, oh, Falzar is one move away or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not too crazy. I just have to make sure that every time Falzar used his one of his actions to move away, so we knew that, you know, for the PCs to get to them, they had to use an action to move. But I said, like, okay, you're not trying to navigate this place. This place is dangerous, and this place is full of booby traps. You can you can use 2 actions to move carefully, right?
Yeah.
To you know, avoid tripping off any traps because you're like everywhere, right? But if you chose not to, there was a chance that you'd trip a trap, and I honestly didn't have a chance roll. It just, like, if you move normally, you would just trip a trap. What I didn't tell you guys was, I only really was gonna really do it like maybe once a round, right? So, you know, because the bombs are pretty powerful. And I gave Falzar an ability to just use, like, I don't know how much I was going to use it. It depends how many times you rolled. He's just going to be able to trigger a bomb by himself, like just like he pulls a string and he knows where all his stuff is and he blows up a bomb.
Yeah.
Right. And like those 2 things was just like, that's it. And because, you know, stuff was happening on other people's turns, it was like engaging. I wasn't gonna Falzar like the ability to summon a gelatinous cube.
Yeah,
right?
You sure did.
Right, because it kind of played into like, okay, so Falzar's gonna it takes like some of the pressure off of him, because now some of your teammates are being engulfed, and now you have to beat this thing while Falzar's just throwing bombs and shooting it with his crossbow at a range. And then it's like, you know, what are you gonna do, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sure it was effective. You guys were so mad at that guy, and he had a lot of personality because it was just like he was very sneaky and conniving. He didn't feel like he was playing fair because he wasn't playing fair, and he wasn't going to play fair. Right? No. He's a serial bomb maker. He doesn't become a serial bomb maker and plant all these bombs all over the city by being a chump. Like, he's a dangerous dude.
I wish I had more luck with my prepared person in their expected environment encounter that we had in our last game. But they were just not ready for what happened to them. Because, yeah, like, prepping for that combat, I wanted to do something, I guess, a bit different. And normally I don't use a lot of spellcasters. Even as a player, it's like, I don't want to think about spells. Just let me hit things. My mace doesn't run out of spell slots.
well, it does. It can cast Fireball
twice
per day now. Macy can cast Fireball twice per day.
In general.
Yeah. Which I still think is like a really badass thing for Macy to do. I'm like really, really happy about that. But even though it's going to be used against me, because I feel like maybe I just haven't played enough higher levels, or no one's really playing wizards. But like, man, like, I miss when people just threw fireballs. Like that time Macy just used the one fireball she had to like blow up the hobgoblin like camp, like immediately incinerating like most of them, which is just kind of spectacular.
Yeah, if I haven't been to use it.
Anyway, yeah. So I don't know if the charlatan had an ability to cast like charm or command or something like.
Well, what happened with her was basically I looked at the stats in the book and I was like, okay, good. But then I changed up some of the spells because it gives you the book obviously gives you some examples of spells that they have. It's like they have this level 2 spell, this level 2 spell, these level 1 spells. So I basically went in and I switched out some of the spells because the charlatan character in the book is built more to be like not in combat so much as just trying to trick and deceive people.
Right.
So I changed it up a bit to be a bit more combat ready. That I lost my notes on that one, so I can't bring up the list specifically. I think I had given her magic missile or something. as well as specifically I gave her fear and charm because I wanted to use those, you know, those mind-altering effects. And then I was, again, I think I probably mentioned this last time, but I was feeling like I wanted this character to, because I went through the trouble of naming them and stuff, I wanted them to, like, obviously, like, they would be prepared for someone coming into this area because they set up this ambush for them, but they would also be prepared to make a quick escape if they had to. So that's why I gave her the ability to cast darkness, which would last for a minute, and then hopefully she had decent stealth. So she would, like, sneak away. It's just that in that situation, she got grabbed before she could.
Yeah, well, okay, so, well, I mean, you can't, no plan ever survives the
exactly. Yeah,
PCs, right?
Yeah, that's a lesson I am still learning to this day. No plan to survive first contact with the player characters.
So I mean, okay, so I would have just not even bothered switching out the spells. I would have just written down the spells I actually just wanted to use. Like, I don't really mess with spell slots that they send on, that you have on a monster character or a villain character, like, because they, like, the lifespan of that character is maybe 3 to 4 rounds, so that's maybe, I don't know, 4 spells. So
yeah, it was very limited.
Yeah, and, like, the PCs are never going to notice or care, right? So I just normally just think of, like, okay, what things would it be cool for her to have, right? So you said that you wanted to use fear and charm, right? So what I think, if I had to do some like, take this encounter apart, right?
Yeah.
I think, because I think you set it up really well with the she being trapped underneath the tree, right? Because think about it this way: the strongest and possibly the dumbest or the lowest will save person is going to be the one trying to help her out of the tree, right?
That was my
That's
intention.
the whole point. Exactly, right? So you know, I would say I would give her the ability, because, you know, the ability exists in Pathfinder, just to cast a charm spell, like, without them knowing, right? Disguise it as some like a compliment or something like that, right? And then so you start the fight off with the charm spell, and then you just basically you roll. I would roll for the player, or maybe you want the player to roll, because the initiative is basically going to be run after that point, right? So you just tell the party to be like, okay, make a will save on the strong fighter or barbarian or whoever it is lifting up the thing. Yeah. And then immediately charm them. If it works, great. If not, then I guess we're in for a fight anyway. And then as soon as they lift it up, she, like, gets out. Get them to start like, the bad guys to appear, like her brigands, and then say, all right, give me all your money. And then the fighter would just be like, yeah, she's right, we should probably give her all her money. And immediately just agree with her because he's charmed, right? I don't know if I really forget how, like, charmed actually works, but I'm pretty sure
charm isn't like a mind control kind of thing, but it does nudge someone towards your side. So my intention with it was to at least take one of you out of combat for 1 or 2 rounds if I could, because you'd have to, like, keep resisting, and your chance to resist it would go up if a creature was hostile towards you or had attacked you. But my thinking was that if this works on someone, then she can at least try to convince them that, hey, I'm not the bad guy here. Don't even worry about fighting me and my pals. And maybe that would work for a time while her buddies got to work. And then I would obviously, like, threaten the very important NPC, as well as start doing damage on the players from a range. Because they're pretty good up close. Especially the fighter is really good up close. But I was thinking, like, here's some people out of range, here's this important NPC, and here's this person with some mind-altering effects.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't even be like after somebody made the roll, right? Like, for the will save, then I would immediately have the brigands show up and be like, give me all your stuff or whatever, right? Like, you don't know who's a spellcaster, right? You didn't know who cast that spell, and, like, maybe throughout the fight, you think that she's just kind of like another NPC that got stuck here and, like, is now being, like, preyed upon by these bad guys. But it turns out she's a charlatan. She's, like, stabs you in the back, right? Like,
yeah. That was sort of along how I wanted it to go, but I mean, things like got heated real quick, so I had to kick it up a notch. But yeah, like I do still have that person around, which I am very lucky for.
Yeah.
Just like, I mean, I guess this is part of encounter design, but like some intelligent creatures that aren't like wild animals or whatever, if they get to a point where they realize I can't win this battle, and they're not like of the mindset where they feel they need to die for whatever cause they're after, they're not going to. Like they would run away if they could, like that one tried to do, or they would like lay down their arms if they were forced to.
Yeah, exactly, right. And it's just like you don't ever have to take anything to the conclusion of everyone's dead, unless it is one of those like fight for your life kind of deal, right?
Yeah. Like I still gave you guys all the XP for that fight because you got to a position where you essentially won the battle. Exactly. You grabbed the very important person. You had them in a position they couldn't escape from. There were still some dudes around. There were still a couple of archers in the trees, and that could have kept going. But there was no way that would have ended without their leader dead, right? So
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a classic. Like, I think Matt Cole brings it up a lot too, where it's like classic. Just kill the necromancer, because as soon as you kill the necromancer, all of his zombies go away. Which, I mean, I would play it that way because that makes sense to me, and I don't think anybody would question it. But yeah, so
yeah, that person is out there. That person is out there now. So plan to use that.
And I mean, also there's like tons more different kinds of encounters out there. Again, Matt Cole, I'm pretty sure one of his running the game videos talks about different types of encounters, because like it's like the difference is going to be like not trying to kill everybody. It's like maybe the bad guys just want to inform their friends that there's PCs afoot, right? Yeah. And the instance is like, don't let them ring the alarm, or don't let them get back and warn us, because now doing the thing that we're trying to do is going to be more difficult, right? And you maybe just be like, sneak past the guards, right? That's like a classic, like
like a stealth encounter or even a social encounter. Like not every encounter, quote unquote, has to be straight up combat based.
Right, exactly.
Those are very interesting ones. Don't get me wrong, because people get to use up all their cool abilities. But yeah, not every encounter has to be like that.
For sure. And like I think like so if it was like a so I mean, for fighting encounters, just like the easiest way to do that is just, especially in Pathfinder, because Pathfinder is such a mobile game, there's not a lot of stuff holding you back from moving. Just add terrain, use terrain, make your monsters move. Sometimes you don't need all of the attacks. Give them ranged attacks, give them higher ground, give them places to escape. Just put like, you can make them the masters of their own terrain, because most likely in Pathfinder, you PCs are invading someone's space that they live here, right?
Yeah.
Either they live here or they work here, and this is like the thing that they do all the time. They should know their terrain.
Yeah, like if they would know their space, they would know how to manipulate it. So yeah, they would know like where the best positions are for things like that.
Yeah, man, a simple pit track can be like the end. Could just turn a regular combat into being like, oh my god, we're all gonna die. Imagine if like your frontline fighter just gets fall into a pit trap, and then now there's nothing standing in your way, all the squishy people in the back.
Yeah, exactly. If they're smart enough, they would strategize.
Yeah, right. And if they're smart enough, they'll also run away and come back for you later, which is even funnier too.
You've got at least 2 of those, maybe more.
Yeah.
So something else I wanted to talk about, unless you have more to say for encounter building.
I mean, I don't know. I could talk about encounter building like all day.
I mean, that is the purpose of this podcast, to talk about things we like for not all day, but at least over an hour.
Yeah, well, unless you wanted to move on, like it's up to you.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we could chat a bit. We've been going for like 30 minutes about this one topic because it's such a interesting and versatile topic.
And I think it's like also a really scary aspect of DMing too.
Sure.
Like
yeah,
like you, especially for new DMs, you want to get all the rules right, and like combat has so many rules. Like, you know, in like a narrative game, it's like, well, not a narrative game, but it's like in like a narrative section of your game, you know, the rules are like kind of loose, but if you're in a combat, all of a sudden you put the grid down or draw some stuff, things get kind of complicated. You know, you're trying to remember all the rules. It's just kind of like, you know, you don't know. And it's like, maybe in a social encounter, you're less likely to kill your PCs than a combat encounter, right?
Slightly less.
So yeah. So
depends on if they're mouthing off to a noble or something, but
well, I mean, that just means you get to escape from prison.
Oh, true.
Right? It's always classic. Send them to the dungeon, and then they're in the dungeon, and then now you have to escape from the dungeons, right?
Yeah, I think you're probably right in saying it's something that makes people nervous, I guess. Well, what would you like say to a person like that? Because to me, it's like, I guess like for us, I don't know, because we've been playing it so long, it's easy to say, yeah, don't worry about the rules, just make it fun. But I guess for someone new coming into it, then like there's gonna be like, I know this was something I was worried about, and I had to like when I was doing my first game, I printed off all the stats, I had them all right in front of me, I had backups in my notes, I had like short little, this attack is this much damage, and we would like try to keep that on me, and I was still like very frantic with it. And now like all this time later, I'm a bit more like relaxed. But I'm trying to think of like, what would one say to someone just starting out with this kind of thing?
I mean, prepare, obviously. So having, like you said, like having all the monsters stat blocks in front of you ready to go. Like I would just take PDF, like just screenshots of like of the pages or like the sections with the monster stuff, and just put them all into a Word document. And then, because you know I have my laptop, I'll just open up my Word document for like, I would just label it like encounter A, and then just has all of the stuff that I need. Even I would go, if the monsters listed spells or abilities in their thing, I would just go take screenshots of those, so I just had it all in front of me, so I didn't have to look it up or remember, right?
Exactly.
You know, that's like a really good way of doing that. But like, and then an evolution of that for me is like, I just make organizations or places, right? So instead of it being like, now I just make every encounter be like, okay, this is what's in this encounter, this is what's in this room, this is what's going on. I just generally have like, okay, what's this criminal organization like? Who are the grunt people? Who are the captain level people? And who is the big boss or you know, mini bosses, right? Or right, lieutenants, right? So after I figure that out and I have like a good mix of creatures, and like maybe I have like a good mix of like, okay, so you know, maybe I put a couple of creatures that I wanted to put in here just for the feel of the place, and then I just kind of have all those stat blocks, or maybe I just remember it all or mark it in my book, and then I'm just good to go. So I don't actually know what's happening in every single room, but I know like where stuff is in the dungeon, right? So it's like if pieces are getting closer to the main boss room or like the treasure room, I was like, guards. Right?
Yeah, and they might get more intense the further in.
Exactly, right? Yeah. And like the first instance of something could be like, I don't know, like just a group of the grunts plus maybe a team leader, right? That's like a good dynamic. And it's like the way I choose those stuff, it could just be like all the grunts, and then I make grunt plus, right? I give him like a special ability that makes him like he's the leader. Sometimes I make it up, sometimes it's just like, okay, he can cast a spell or whatever, or maybe it's just like, you know, find a bunch of gnolls. Like there's, you know, regular gnolls, and there's like a gnoll shaman, and you know, take the gnoll shaman.
Those guys
maybe
are
I'm like,
okay, something.
Yeah, right. And then it's like, oh, maybe instead of it being, they go into like another section of the place, and it's like, I'm feeling like maybe all the shamans hang out in the shaman room, right? So then I'm like, okay, you go into this one room and you find a bunch of shamans doing a ritual, and then now they're fighting 4 shamans, which is like, ah, crap. I mean, shamans are probably not as strong as the grunt guys being like melee combat, but now you have to do it with 4 spellcasters, and it's like, oh, that's a different combat.
Yeah, it's entirely different.
Exactly. Right. Like, so then I just, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. You can finish your thought.
Oh, well, I was saying like, yeah, I think that like making like an organization type setup is just easier to run anything, because now you can just go like if you just had to like take that, like go like your PCs went somewhere else and you have to come back to find these guys, you already have it all together, right? You already know their structure, you already know how they work, and like you already put the thought in beforehand how they would synergize with each other, right? So it's like,
that's a good point about, especially like if it's a reoccurring enemy, then you have their different like rank and file.
Yeah, exactly, right? Different combinations, different like stuff. So, you know, on the fly, you could just be like, I don't know. I was like, I want 2 clerics and that big guy with the sword. And now it's like a totally different encounter from like all the dudes with the spears and like a mage or something like that, right? It's just like a different feel.
Yeah. That's a pretty good idea for like massive organizations of bad guys. I think I could definitely apply that to like gangs or bandits or even like groups of supervillains in a superhero game.
Yeah, exactly, right.
But yeah, like me personally, when I'm doing prep, like now when I do prep, I still like, I'll obviously check the book and stuff if I'm using a creature. But what I like to do these days is I'll copy the stats and then I'll go through, because I put them in like OneNote. Right. Just because I usually use my phone a lot. I have a bad habit of thinking of ideas right before I go to bed. But I'll copy and paste the stats over, and then I'll go through and just bold the things that I know for sure I will need. So like their attacks, their HP, their AC, or whatever the game may be. I'll just bold that, and then I know like when I refer to my notes, I don't have to go looking for this important thing that I need. It's like, oh, I just look there, what's in bold, their HP, there it is. I'm aware of how much they have, what their maximum is, or what I have to roll for an attack. For a spellcaster, if I'm running online, which is usually the case, I'll just have a link to the page with the spell if I need it. Otherwise, I'll just have the DC of it, and just have it, because I'll know like what the spell does before I go in. Yeah. But like, all I need to know is what does a person need to roll to beat this thing, and then if I need to, I'll have the spell in another tab and just like glance at it.
Yeah, which I like too, because in Pathfinder they have their stat blocks are written out pretty well.
Yes.
They're really easy to read and really clear what's going on and just like what this thing is capable of doing. Yeah, and like, man, the bestiary is great too, because all of the sidebars and all of like the introductory stuff just gives you so many ideas to like pair creatures. Like I think it was what was it? I forget what the creatures were that were together, but it was like kobolds and some other big like monster, and it's like, oh yeah, kobolds and like ankegs. Right? Okay. Right. So there's a blurb in the ankeg section in the bestiary, and it just mentions that often kobolds like train ankegs as best as possible as like guardians, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, because they protect their holes, right? Because they'll just feed them and stuff, and then if the ankeg is like, if they're getting attacked, the ankeg will step in. And an ankeg is like a level 3 CR3 creature, right?
Yeah. So
you're going around with you're bumbling around in a kobold dungeon, right? You get messed up by the traps. They're like trying to hire you, and then all of a sudden they lead you into a pit with their ankeg. Right, and then all of a sudden you're just thinking you're just gonna fight a bunch of kobolds, and all of a sudden there's another giant creature, or like maybe like the kobold dragon mage is like riding an ankeg because he's a badass like that, right? And now it's like the fight's just like the encounter just gets so much cooler.
Yeah, that is a really cool visual.
Yeah, right, and it has like, so there's also like different types of characters or elements into a fight, like adversaries, right? So you have like your ranged strike people, you have like your frontline fighters, you have your big tough tank monster things, you have your okay, so we have this thing because I play Warhammer 40k, they call it a distraction carnifex. And what a carnifex is, it's basically just like an alien biotank, essentially. It's just this crazy big monster the size of a house and as powerful as like a bulldozer, and it's just like, but it's actually it's strong. It's strong enough for you to be worried about it, but it's not strong enough to really be like so OP. But if you just kind of ignore it, it's gonna start wrecking your stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like having a distraction carnifex. It's really good because it's like your end goal is to really beat the bad guy. But if you don't, but you know what I mean? But then like if you don't deal with the distraction carnifex, it's gonna like wreck your stuff. That's kind of the idea of Falzor and like the cube, right? So the Gelatinous cube, it's like the Gelatinous cube was my distraction card effects.
Yeah.
Right. If you had just killed Falzor, then like, you know, I pretty much like the fight would have been over. Like I wouldn't really care that much, right? But it's the fact that it's like now everyone's like had to think about like has another like level like layer in the fight. Like which one do I attack now?
Yeah, that cube was. I want to say it was really messing us up, but it was mostly me at the time.
Well, yeah, you a lot of people failed their fort saves and reflex saves that game, which was it meant it was tense. It was a tense game.
Yeah. I wonder if we should do like a encounter building episode the same way we've done the world building ones.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we should do like a dungeon building episode. I think like a dungeon, like building dungeons is like such an easy way for DMs. I mean, again, I keep like I think Matt Koval is like a really good resource because he's just kind of like breaks stuff down like simply, I guess, and it's like if you build a dungeon and you're a first-time dungeon master, like it's just such a confined space, and you don't have to worry about like politics. You don't have to worry about, you know, places and people and cultures. Like you're in a dungeon. These are the rooms. These are the levels. You can just bang it out and like put some encounters there, and like you'll have sessions worth of stuff. Like you'll have so much sessions worth of stuff, and for you know, a decent amount of effort, right?
Yeah.
Like you'll get more out of it than you put in.
I think that also might be a way to, like, if the combat rules are the hardest part of the game, I would say just doing a dungeon right off the bat is like jumping in to swim in the deep end or the medium end.
And honestly, like the game is designed for combat first. Like as much as like everybody is like, yeah, I love playing role-playing games for the role-playing, but it's like you're playing like Pathfinder specifically and Dungeons and Dragons are a combat game first. You have all of your, when you level up, you're primarily getting better at killing monsters.
Yeah.
First.
Yeah, I would say that is like, but I mean, it depends on your perspective. Some people might say that's a bad thing about the game. I kind of like that about these games because I think mechanics would get in the way of these RP and social encounters if they were as intense as they are for combat. Like if you were having a social encounter with someone and you're trying to convince them of something and you have to go by like, even if you have to go by like different rounds or whatever, that would just be mechanics getting in the way. So I kind of, as much as some people complain that RP stuff or social stuff seems tacked on to games like D&D and Pathfinder and whatever else, I kind of like that because they stepped out of the way of what I feel like is the most interesting part, and then they step in to give structure to the part that needs it the most.
Yeah, right. It's like I think it has the most stakes in my opinion. Other than, you know, it's just like it's life or death. The other ones is just more story. Like you're never gonna RP yourself into 0 HP. Really.
Probably,
you know
not.
I
mean, anything could happen, but
but that's just up to the DM. Like the DM is just gonna, like the DM will always just keep putting you into just more fire and more danger because it's exciting, but it's never gonna be like he's gonna start doing hit point damage to you all of a sudden at a party.
Yeah, you embarrassed yourself. Take 5 points of I don't know, psychic damage or whatever.
Yeah, mental damage or something like that. Right? Like it's never gonna work that way. At least I don't know. I don't know everyone's DMing style, but it seems kind of silly to me.
Yeah, I don't know. That's something I do appreciate, that they just get out of your way and let you do whatever you want to. And then when it's like, yeah, we need some rules around how well you're able to fight something, because some things are strong, some things are weak, some weapons are strong, some weapons are weak, and they just need to structure that out more so than how you're able to talk to someone.
Yeah, definitely.
Even though we veered off encounter building now. But something I was thinking about also is the quote-unquote rule of cool. So I guess to explain for people who might not know, it's sort of like, it's the same as suspension of disbelief. Like when you're watching a Fast and Furious movie and they drive a car out of a window into another building, but then the brakes don't work, so instead of braking they speed up, and then they drive out of that building to another building, and then the car starts spinning and crashing, and then they jump out of the car, which is going real fast, and then the car goes out another window and it falls on the ground. And then like they skid to the edge of the building, and Vin Diesel's looking over the edge of the building, and he's like, "Whoa, we almost fell, but we're family." Like,
good thing family saved us.
Like the believability in that very moment, even though it is ridiculous, but it exists in a universe where that is a plausible thing that can happen, because not so long ago they just parachuted out of a plane with cars.
Yeah.
So it's something that's like allowing a player to do something cool that might be a bit game breaking, but it's really like they've come up with a creative idea or a solution to a problem, and then it's like how much space do you give people to experiment in that way? Because it is very easy to get to a point where they're stretching the limits, and then not only does it sort of break the game, but it also breaks like suspension in a way. Because if you know, well, I can get away with basically anything, then there's no real danger. But at the same time, like, I personally don't like saying no when someone comes up with a creative solution. I'll say it'll be difficult, and I'll try to figure out a way to like let you do that with some dice rolls to put some chance on it and put some difficulty on it. But I don't like saying no outright. So I was I wanted to pick your brain on that, see how you felt about it.
Well, I think that yes, you should do it 100%. Like, the rule of cool is like half the reason to play these role-playing games, because, you know, sometimes you just gotta have those moments, right? Like, you gotta have those cinematic moments, you gotta have those moments that you're just kind of bonkers, because it's just like the fun of the game.
Yeah.
What I think that you shouldn't do, like, an example would be like, I'm the bard and I'm rolling to convince the king to give me his kingdom. Right?
Yeah.
And I crit. I'm pretty sure that was a story, and it's like, well, I guess the king's just gonna give his kingdom over because you crit.
Yeah.
Or whatever, right? And I'm like, that's dumb. Right? Like, the rule of cool should never be used for dumb things. Or shouldn't be justified for kind of dumb things, unless that's the kind of a game you want to play.
Yeah, it is. Like, it does depend on the tone of the game.
Right. And like, I think that if you, okay, so to be fair, the 3-action economy kind of makes it really easy to justify a whole lot. Yeah. Because the idea of 3 actions to a person means a lot. You could do a lot. So if someone's like, I want to swing on the chandelier and cut the rope at the right angle so I can slam the ogre with the chandelier and it gets stuck or something like that. Yeah. Something kind of swashbuckly ridiculous. Like, and I was like, yeah, okay, it's gonna take your whole turn, but let's see if you do it and give it a roll. And then if they roll good enough, like, honestly, I'm looking for probably something over a 10 or over a 15 or something, because that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. And then, but that's even something with like multiple steps. So, but like, exactly, that could be multiple checks or something too.
Yeah, but like, I might not even do multiple checks. I think that, like, it's mostly just kind of like a fate die roll. It's like, oh yeah, I would do like, I would just steal the stuff from Lancer, right? Lancer's right there. Be like, okay, this sounds kind of difficult. The thing that you want, right? It would probably be between the 15 to 20 range, right, or like 15 above. And if you get that, or if you break 20, then you did it. Everything goes as planned. 15 to 20, you did it, but maybe something minor kind of messes up. Like, maybe at the end of it, you did everything, the ogre is trapped in the chandelier, but you trip and you fall on your prone, right?
Okay.
Or like, it might be that, you know, 10 would be like, okay, so you managed to break the chandelier, it hits the ogre, it knocks him off balance, but now you and the ogre are off balance on the ground next to each other, or something like that, or whatever the next step is, or maybe you got hurt in the situation. And then 10 would be like, okay, you did all that stuff, but the ogre, you got the ogre, but then the ogre grabs you in the middle of the process, and now the ogre has you in his hand while it's stuck.
Okay, so
the ogre gets stuck or something, right? Something silly like that. And I think that, like, a player would be like, okay, I understand. I rolled pretty crappy, but I'm glad that I made the cool thing happen that I wanted to do, kind of, right?
Okay, so you would do like a single roll, but with multiple possible failure states depending on how bad the player had rolled, if they rolled under a certain target.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And that target is to me kind of arbitrary. I just hear a number and I'm like, yeah, that's probably good.
Okay, because to me, what I would have done is I would have gone with multiple rolls because they're doing something that takes multiple steps, and that also adds to, I think, the difficulty of it. Because like what I'm hearing from you is that you would have that higher DC to do something maybe technically complex or difficult, but with different ways you can fail depending on how low you get. To me, exactly. I would say you want to jump onto the chandelier, you want to break it and then swing it down. You'd maybe need a check to get up there or a check to attack and maybe something else in between there, depending on how difficult it would be or how large the creature is or yada yada, whatever else. And then from there, those failures would have different failure states. Like instead of like for me, I would say like there's a pass, fail, pass, fail, pass, fail kind of thing instead of a difficult to pass with multiple different kinds of fail. But I think in the end, they still work out the same way in that it's possible to do this thing, but it's also very, very possible to mess it up. Right.
Okay. So what would you? So okay, the first instances for in your way of doing it, it would be the pass fail would be, did you manage to get onto the chandelier?
Yeah.
Right. So if they didn't, what would you do?
Well, depending on from their position, like if they're jumping on it from somewhere high up, then I would say, you just fall down. If they're like trying to climb up there, then it's like you try to go for a foothold, but you skid back down. And if those were like particularly bad, like they rolled a 1 or whatever, then I might say, you fall prone or something. But if they do get onto it, then from there, I would think either you try to cut it and it doesn't work this turn, but you do weaken it a bit, or you do manage to, but now you've got to land on this thing. Depending on how difficult I think it should be based on the situation. I would probably at least have 1 for them to get up there and then 1 for them to attack. Maybe 1 more for them to actually break the chandelier. In this particular Harry Potter-esque ogre in the castle chandelier situation.
Right. And
troll in the dungeon, whatever.
Yeah, so I think either way, because then it's like, so in your case, if they do completely fail, at least they have 2 more actions to do something else.
Yeah.
Right. While in my scenario, they get to still have the thing that they want happen, but it might be, it's like the higher you get, the cooler you are, but the lower you get, the more slapstick it gets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Which I think for it, like you need to have both in a good, D&D Pathfinder game, like kind of like a fantasy adventure game. You need to have a little bit of slapstick comedy and a little bit of like high action adventure, right? Like there
needs to be some levity there. Although players do tend to bring that in themselves.
Yeah, and I think if even if the person who's doing it trying to be cool, everybody around the table is going to be like, that was hilarious. I can't believe that happened. And then they'll talk about it forever, and that's the real juice. When players bring back up stuff in games and you're like, yes.
Yeah. Players just talking about the game outside of the game is, like, no matter what the topic is, it's just always super rewarding.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like, here's a GIF that reminds me of the game. That's always it's the best. But I guess, did we cover Rule of Cool? Because I was wondering, like, how much leeway is too much. Because for me, it's a matter of, I don't want to say no to people when they come up with something that, like, isn't entirely against, like, something mechanically. Like, if it's something like, that's not how the spell works in any capacity or something like that. Like, if it's not something that in the future would be a detriment to any sort of sense of danger in the game, I don't ever want to say no to someone. I just want to say, how difficult do I have to make this? So I'll let you describe what you want to do, and if it sounds extremely difficult, then I'll gauge where you should be making checks for that and how difficult those checks should be.
Right. So typically, so if you think about it this way, when you make an attack roll, there's a pass, you did it and you hit them. Fail, you failed. The only failure you had, the only risk involved is you missing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of how it is, and then it means that the fight just takes that much longer. If I think that, like, if the benefit that they're gonna get is like significant, then the risk involved should be significant. Or I mean, also if someone's just using logic, so it's like Abby, my wife, like when you guys were at the pirate camp and all the pirates were asleep in their really shitty pirate cabin,
yeah,
essentially
they're very
made of just
pirate cabin.
you know, yeah, very dry, specifically very dry, very shabby cabin, which, you know, easily flammable, right? She's like, wait, I have a spell. She goes for a spell list and she's like, wait, I can cast Flaming Sphere. Can I just like make a Flaming Sphere and just roll that stuff all over the place? And I'm like, yeah, I guess you did. She's like, cool, I'm gonna light the place on fire. So then she just did, right?
Yeah.
And like her reward, that didn't just all of a sudden she's like, yeah, I killed all the pirates. I was like, okay, so a lot of the pirates probably didn't make it out of there, but some of them do, and they're probably going to come out hurt. So, you know, she felt really smart.
Yeah.
When she came up with this plan.
Yeah.
Right. But it's also still didn't stop me from running the, like, no rule of cool should ever stop you from running the game that you want to run.
Yeah.
Right. Right. It's like, but now it's like a cool story that, you know, as long as the rule of cool makes you be able to do cool stories instead of it being like, you know, ruining your fun as a DM. But also you gotta give, like, you know, like I said, it's like that thing where it's like we're all playing together. So as long as like the net positive is good, then yeah, man, really cool should be employed like all the time.
Yeah, if it like that's one way to, I think, reward players for coming up with creative solutions to problems that are beyond what you might have thought of. Yeah,
totally. I mean, I don't know. I really did not know what they're going to do with 30 pirates inside of a cabin. I was like, I don't know. But it was really funny because they in the adventure I was kind of like modifying it. They mentioned that the cabin where all the 30 pirates are is like really dry and kind of shabby and mostly made out of like, you know, palm leaves and stuff like that. And
yeah.
I was like, that sounds really flammable.
It is. It's super. I mean, clearly it was.
Right, so clearly, like, you know, the designers of the adventure is like, this is how you deal with 30 pirates.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think it is just like, it is a way to like you want to reward people for thinking outside the box, like finding ways to express themselves creatively. Yeah. I don't think you want to take away from someone when they do that, even if you gotta make them work for it or take a risk on it.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's, yeah, I think that's one way to employ the rule of cool.
I hope that answered your question.
Oh, I don't know. It wasn't a question. I guess it was a question, like how much is too much? Yeah. And
yeah,
I guess the answer is as much as they can earn.
Yeah, right. And you know, I think that if they do something cool and mess up your plans, you're definitely allowed to do something cool and mess up their plans.
Yep.
Totally fair. Karma is a bitch.
And so are the bad guys. But yeah, I think we've covered a couple. We've covered, I guess, two main topics, but I think we've really expanded on them this episode. You know, every time we do an episode, I'm always like trying to come up with a list of like 6 topics or 5 or 6 topics, and we always manage to cover like 2 or 3 in an hour. Yeah,
man. Like I will, to be fair, like encounter stuff, like combat stuff, like I talk about stuff for like days, like all the time. That's like that's my bread and butter.
I really want to talk about like superhero encounters because I've had so much fun just building those because it really gives me a lot of like very creative space to work with. But because we haven't put them out yet, I can't talk about them in detail. But I mean, the last game we played, I had a villain with a really, really stupid name, and those are very much my thing. But yeah, when we get there, we can talk about that more. Those are being produced. Hopefully they'll be, I keep saying that, but you know, it's just busy life kind of thing. But you know, you know how it be.
Yes.
Cause gosh, I want to expand on that, and I want to talk about other stuff. But if you want to hear us talk about other stuff, especially like other games and stuff, just drop a subscribe. Actually, if anybody who's listening has any particular things that you want us to talk about, just always feel free to drop a comment or anything, because you know, we just chat about what's interesting to us or the things we're really into, but we want people to feel like they have some sort of say in what we talk about. So I mean, like, I want that. I don't know. I assume Ramon wants that as well.
Yes, I do. If there's anything that you want us to touch on or hear about, just put a comment down below. We'll read it and we'll add it onto the list. of topics that we cover. We'll cover like the next session probably.
Yeah, I mean, I'm already copying over the things we didn't get to for the next episode list. So yeah, I'll add more things to that. But if you want to hear more from us, just hit that subscribe button so you get us in your feed, and also make sure to hit that subscribe bell so you get a notification every time we upload a video. Our podcast episodes go up every Wednesday, every Win with Dice Wednesday. So if you don't want to hit the bell or subscribe, just keep an eye out for that. Just search for us every Wednesday. Help boost our SEO.
You can follow us at Twitter at the Win with Dice Twitter, which I'm assuming is at Win with Dice.
It is, yeah. Yes. You're on Twitter now, so you should know what it is. But we're also on Facebook.
I downloaded Twitter and I opened it, and then that's pretty much as Twitter I am. That's it.
Well, you followed back at least, so you're halfway there. But yeah, check us out on Twitter. Check us out on Facebook. Check out our website for sure, because our website's real nice looking. I'm pretty proud of how our website looks. It's pretty fresh.
Nice.
I mean, you know, it's a nice looking website. I can't pretend it's not. Just, yeah, why don't you comment, guys, like drop a comment on how nice our website is.
Yeah, tell Kevin what a good job he did.
Yeah, pat me on the back, please.
Yeah.
But I think that's about it for now. I don't know. Do you have anything else to say before we sign off?
Nah. Do that sweet outro.
Oh, sweet. Drum roll. And remember to keep on winning with dice. We'll see you next. I think I say it differently every week.
Oh, it's good. I like it every time. All right, bye, guys.
See you next time.